What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Knives of the Round Table. My name is Marco, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Something Obscene Company Mini J-Cape. So the first knife that Something Obscene Company came up with is the full-size J-Cape. It's the large version of this, and you will find a review of that knife in my channel. But after a while, he decided to come up with a small version of this knife, and I know I'm nitpicking here, but my ideal size is really the size that is between the mini J-Cape and the full-size J-Cape. I'll talk to you about why that is. But let me give you a tour of the knife. And what you have here is you know that I enjoy quite a bit when you have a compound grind. So what you have here is a hollow grind. It carries the flat carries to about right here, and then you got a hollow grind from here on down, and then you got a flat grind for the tip to kind of give it more strength, so you have more material that carries up towards the tip, and then you got this really nice pronounced swedge, and it all kind of converges right around this point. So the aesthetics of the belt satin going down, going sideways, going diagonally this way, and then the hand rub satin of the flats, I think it creates for a really, really, really compelling type of aesthetic, at least in my opinion. You've got this thumb wrap with very effective jimping. This is the type of jimping that is effective without being painful. You've got a sharpening choil that is fairly generous, but you cannot use it as a finger choil. At least you'd have to have really, really small fingers to really get a finger in there. It is a titanium pring lock, and what you have is an over travel stop that is also a lock bar insert. You have the usual lightning bolt clip that Something Obscene does. It's part of their logo. You can see it in the fist right there in the knuckle. And this version, what he's done is he's starting to do his sales and his drops via pre-orders, and in the pre-order you kind of get to pick what version of the knife you want. And there's different carbon fibers, there's micartas, there's titanium, there's different blades, there's a thumb stud option and a flipper option. The pre-order for this has been fulfilled, as you can see. But the one for the full-size J-Cape, the version 4.0, is on right now. So if you want to go take a look, you'll see that there's everything from the most basic one to the fully dressed, very crazy damn steel and Damascus and all of those kinds of things. So you can go as low as spending $350, $400 on the J-Cape, to going full bore, $1,500, $1,700 on the knife. You can also he also has the option of selecting kind of Damascus or Mokume or all kinds of hardware if you just want to get the basic version and then give it a little punch with some of those stuff. Anyways, you can go check out his website, and I think the pre-order for the full-size J-Cape in the version 4.0 is up right now. So that's kind of the tour of the knife. And like I said, this is the small version of the knife, and I wish that they had like a medium version of the knife, because this comes in, it's right a little bit beyond. It's like 2 5/8. It's just over 2.5 inches long, and it's a small knife. It's a small knife. Look, I'll give you some size comparisons here. That's the Para 2. So you can see the Para 2 kind of dwarfs it, right? But even the Para 3 looks significantly bigger than what this one is. Now, they are about the same thickness. It's a little bit chunkier. This one's a little bit chunkier, the mini J-Cape is. But, in the pocket, the Para 3 and the mini J-Cape, they feel remarkably the same. They feel very similar. They're not small, they're chunky. The J-Cape is smaller, but they're chunkier. They don't disappear in your pocket, is I guess what I'm trying to say here. Now, if you take a look at the bug outs, here's the full size bug out. So significantly, the bug out is significantly longer, but the mini bug out is right in the same neighborhood of length. Now, obviously, the carry profiles are significantly different, right? This is much thicker and much taller than the bug out is, and this one disappears in your pocket. This one does not, but lengthwise, it's very similar to the bug out. Now, the reason that I say, if you follow my channel, you know that 3¼ inches is kind of my ideal blade size, and the reason for that is that with a 3¼ inch blade length, you end up with, if you keep the handle ratio of this, you can see that the tip is it's almost to the very edge of the knife, right, of the scales. So if they had done a little bit longer, then the scales would be longer, and I wouldn't have this problem. You see, I wear large gloves, right? So what I have is that my 3 fingers are supposed to fit in, 1 in this groove, 2 in this groove, and then 1 in this right here, in this back ramp right here. But what ends up happening is my fingers are fatter, right? So I end up with this finger kind of right on that point right there. So I think the ergonomics for anybody with medium or small size hands is going to really enjoy the ergonomics of this knife, or is going to enjoy it a lot more than I do. Especially in the saber grip, because in the saber grip, the thumb ramp, even in my large hands, it feels really natural, really good. You feel really locked into the knife. You don't feel like it's gonna go anywhere. But again, I think this is more of a medium-sized hand, and the full-size J-cape is a little bit too big. I end up with too much scale, too much handle, you know, when I grab it. So my ideal size would be kind of like one that's right in the middle of this. Now, one thing that I want to talk about is that when you have a lightning bolt as your pocket clip with all of these little points, when you have it in your hand, you feel kind of every one of those points. It's very noticeable. It's kind of hotspot city. So the ergonomics from a scale standpoint are good, and especially if you have medium-sized hands, you do have to know that you have some hot spots here with the clip. Now, one thing that he's changed, and I'm really glad that he's changed, I mentioned it in the review of my full-size J-cape, but this is a flat scale here and flat here. So while it's obviously it's chamfered, you can see the chamfer right here, and it's decent chamfer, but it feels like you're holding a 2x4, you know, and a 2x4 does have rounded corners, but at the end of the day, you end up feeling like you're holding, you know, a rectangular piece of something in your hand. It's kind of the same problem that the Spydercos have, right? In the fact that they've done all of this contouring in this direction, but it's just a flat face, you know, in this face. So something that he's done in the full-size J-cape, the 4.0 version of the knife, the one that's open right now, is that these scales are now contoured. They have a belly going this way, and that's something that I think is going to improve the ergonomics of the knife significantly. So that's as far as the ergonomics go. For cutting, like a lot of hollow grinds with a thick blade, and this is a thick blade stock. Let me see if I can show you here. It's right in the neighborhood of the Para 2 for a thick blade, for the thickness of the blade. But the problem is that in the Para 2, you have that thickness, but it's a full flat grind from the top to the bottom, and this is basically the same equally tall blade, but because the flat carries to here, you end up with a lot of material right here. So it's nowhere near as slicey as what you get from a Para 2. For shallow cuts, because the hollow it does this. So all throughout the thin portion of the hollow, from about right here to about right here. So if you're cutting leather on a board, if you're cutting cardboard on a board, or if you're cutting rope, this is going to be very, very effective. This is going to be superb, especially because you get the really, really thin edge of the hollow grind with the robustness or the strength behind here, so you can put force behind cutting a rope without fear of damaging your blade, but you end up with a really, really thin edge over here. Now the advantage of compound grinds like this is that if you have something like the Jaeger, right, that it's a full hollow, you end up with a tip that is very dainty. Okay, you can do some detail work with it, but it's got to be delicate work. If you're going to be piercing something that it's a little bit rougher, then you want more material to carry out towards the tip, like this one does. So this is much more of a, like if I show you, this is the Para 3 and this is the Mini J Cape, you can see how there's a distal taper, in other words, a taper that goes from here all the way to the tip. So you end up with a really, 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 really thin tip as compared to what you get from the J Cape. So obviously I will never recommend that you pry with your knife, but if you ever have to do some kind of, cutting a hole into something, you would want something that with a more robust tip, something like this. So cutting for certain tasks is going to be really good. For certain others, if you want to slice, if you want to cut an apple, those kinds of things, it's going to split it because it's the blade stock is pretty darn thick. Especially, I mean, if you compare it, like I said, it's the same length as the Mini Bug Out, but as you can clearly tell, the thickness of the blade is significantly thicker on the Mini J Cape. Now, I believe these are made by Riot, and as such, you get a lot of the really good thing that Riot does. And I'll double check, and if not, you'll see a banner here that says that I'm wrong. But the grind lines here, the hand satin on the flat, it all speaks to really, really, really good fit and finish. You've got this, I'm gonna call it, I don't know what to call this. It's almost like a polished. It's almost like a mirror. It's not quite a mirror, but it's also not a satin or a hand rub satin or any of those. It's I'm gonna call it a semi mirror. Okay, that's what I'm gonna go with. You've got really good fit and finish. You've got chamfers where you're expecting them. You've got really good grinds. You have the same thing happening on both sides, perfectly symmetrical. The point where this arc touches here is the same where this side touches there. Really, really outstanding fit and finish. The stuff that comes out of their factories is really, really, really good. Now action. So action is it's really good. Well, I'm gonna say it's good. Deploying it is really nice. It always happens, right? You call it really nice and then you fail the action. Deploying it's very good. As you can see, I could fail it, but I think deploying it for the most part is very reliable. Now, because I have a larger hand, and I'm sorry about somebody's cutting grass outside. Because I have a larger hand, this one, I tend to put some pressure on the lock bar, and sometimes when I do that, if I touch the lock bar, it's very difficult to deploy the knife. I can't, I'm touching it and I can't do it. So you have to really keep your hand off the lock bar. So I think deploying it is decent. It doesn't have a drop shot action, as you can see here. man, I keep failing it. I don't know. I don't understand. Usually, I'm not having that much trouble deploying it. But maybe it's something to consider. I usually don't have a problem deploying it, but I've kind of failed it a couple of times here. So the action feels good on deployment. It's not a drop shot action, and it's kind of dependent on your positioning of your hand on the lock bar. And so it's not a very fidgety knife, especially the knives that you have to think about where your hand is when you're fidgeting. It's not a pleasurable experience. And for me, if I can't have my hand on the lock bar, I end up having to grab the pocket clip, and the pocket clip has all kinds of points, right? And so I end up putting my finger right there, and it jabs against my finger. You can see how it's red right there, and it's from when I pull this way, you can see the mark right there that the pocket clip is leaving. So it deploys well, and for the most part I don't fail it if I'm not touching the lock bar. So deployment is decent, not great because you have to think about where your fingers are, and closing it's not a drop shot action. So make make of that what you will. So what else? Airing of grievances. Okay, so one thing that I will say is I hate the pocket clip. I absolutely hate the pocket clip. It's I think that he has to stop doing this. For his full-size J-cape, you can get a pocket clip that is it doesn't have it's let's call it a regular pocket clip, and it has a cutout inside of the pocket clip for the lightning bolt. So imagine kind of like a solid pocket clip, but inside of it you get a cutout for a lightning bolt. If I find a picture, I'm gonna put it right here. And the reason that's better is that first, you don't get all of these hot spots, and this is hotspot city, right? Every one of these corners acts as a hotspot when you're holding the knife. The other problem is when it's sliding in and out of your pocket, this catches and then that catches, and when it's coming out, that catches and then that catches, and every single time it's like a little saw just destroying your pocket. This pocket clip is one of the worst pocket clips out there. It's just I understand that he wants the look, and you can see it billboarded here, and you can see it billboarded there, and you can see it billboarded here, and I understand that he wants to put a lightning bolt on there, but man, it's just not practical. From deploying it hurts your hand. When you're holding it, you can feel the points in your hand. When it's going in and out of your pocket, it destroys your pocket. So I have a big problem with the pocket clip. In fact, it was one of my biggest gripes on the full size J cape, to the point where I got the other pocket clip for the J cape, and that works much better, I think. In the same way that Chavez, he's got this skull pocket clip, and he was like, I'm gonna keep that skull pocket clip come hell or high water, and he would refuse to change it. And a lot of people were like, look, I love your knife, but you can't keep a skull pocket clip. I can't carry that around. Until finally, with the Redención Street, he ended up including an alternate pocket clip. He's like, okay, fine, I'm gonna give you a different pocket clip, and that's the way to do it. And I think he has to. This guy has to do the Something Obscene has to do the same thing, right? Okay, you want it to come with this one, fine, but you have to include the other one as well, because this one, frankly, it's crap. It's the jagged edges, the points everywhere. It's uncomfortable in the hand. It's uncomfortable going in the pocket and out of the pocket. It sucks because it's such a phenomenal blade shape. I like the look of this blade shape so much, and I like the fact that he's done the contouring on the new version. But that pocket clip, man, that pocket clip sucks. So, guys, like I said, I wanted to get this one out partly because I was ready to do this review, but also because now you can go get the full-size version, which I think is a much better knife than this, and you can get whatever option you want. There's I don't know how many permutations you can get, but there's many, and there's also many exclusives. So check those out as well. There's a St. Nick's knife, there's a Blade HQ knife, there's a Gecko Customs, which is the one that I got. Gecko Customs, I think that's the one that's one of the nicer ones. And then you got, like, I don't know, a bunch of different options on his website. So guys, hopefully this has been helpful for you. If it is, then like and subscribe. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. And until I see you on the next one, take care.